Okay, so quickly moving on, ladies and gentlemen, for the Roundtable 3, where the topic is skill session building capacity to serve the human capital challenge. Well, care begins with people. The senior care industry relies on doctors, nurses, social workers, researchers, and volunteers to deliver its solutions. It also needs researchers and design thinkers to innovate new solutions. Why should someone be attracted to this industry, and how do we build the capacity to serve our seniors with the dignity they deserve? Well, this session focuses on what it will take to make the senior care a mainstream career path for professionals. And together, we pave the way towards a brighter future for senior care in India. And we are exhilarated to unveil the panel for our discussion on building capacity to serve the human capital challenge. So please help me in welcoming the moderator, Dr. Karthik Narayan, our Managing Director from Atulya Senior Care, to join us on stage. And also let's welcome the panelists, Dr. Shubnum Singh, Principal Advisor, Health Policy, CII Advisor and GC Member, HSSC. And let's welcome Mr. Mansoor Dalal, Founder and Chairman Emeritus, ASLI Chairman, CommonAge, Dr. Sanju Thomas Abraham, Managing Partner, T and APIC Skill Development Center for Healthcare, Nirupama VG, Managing Director at Astra Consultant. And quickly over to the moderator. Let's have the biggest round of applause for all of these fabulous people here on stage, everyone. Over to Dr. Karthik.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. I think while a broad introduction, but quickly let me do my justice to the esteemed panelists. Welcome Dr. Shubnum Singh, Board Member, Healthcare Sector Skill Council and CII. Mansoor Dalal, Chairman, CommonAge, Chairman Emeritus, ASLI, Advisor, Standard Wise. Dr. Sanju Thomas, Managing Director, Tamil Nadu Epic Skill Development Center for Healthcare, and the panel name member for Queen Mary University, University of London. Welcome, Ms. Nirupama, MD at Astra, also founder of the top 3 HR consulting firms in India, such as Team Lease. Thank you for joining us today. So while the report is out, I don't know how many of you guys have read it. 20,000 beds today, 400,000 beds in the future, a $2 billion market opportunity, a $10 billion opportunity in the future. How are we going to address it? People, challenges. Just to give you a quick example, on an average, a 100-bed senior care facility requires close to 100 to 120 people, majorly being caretakers, clinical professionals, and administration. So close to 400,000 people in the future, human capital requirements, and how we're going to build capacity. So I've broken down into 5 themes so that we go deeper into keeping the audience in mind. First, how do we make this sector aspirational? How do we transform or unlock the human capital for senior care in India? Because while it is not a well-spoken space, but today it is. But how do we make it aspirational for young professionals to choose a career path in senior care? Dr. Shubnum, I'll start with you, and other panelists can please join in.
Thank you, Karthik, and I thank you, ASLI, for giving me this opportunity. And I have to say, full marks to the growth of ASLI. And 7 years ago, when we started with the CII Health Council on senior living, everybody looked at me and said, what are you trying to do? And to see this blossom in ASLI in this way is fantastic. To your point and the aspirational need, I'll just roll back and share with all of you, and perhaps link it to the previous conversation also. So 22 years ago, when I joined a company, Max Healthcare, we were supremely confident to be able to get people for healthcare. Let me tell you, it was the most difficult thing to do. not only doctors and nurses, but the entire value chain. When we moved into senior care, the same story played out. The other consistent factor was, how do you attract people to join the workforce? How do you address their aspirational need? And here, I can't say it's unfortunate, but it's the truth of the matter. The underpinning of the aspiration in our country is motivated by the financial incentive. That is always top of the mind. That's point number one. Point number two is the attractiveness to leverage upon what they have learned here to go overseas. Again, indirectly, it is to the aspirational need to earn money to send it back home to the family. The second most important point is, and this is very pertinent to the senior care ecosystem, and that is the security of the individual, whether it is within the four walls of providing care in a hospital, nursing home, or a care system, or it is providing care for the at-home. Yes, what has changed from an aspirational perspective is the knowledge of the number of job roles that there are in healthcare. Earlier, 22, 24 years ago, societal acceptance for anybody to be in healthcare was limited to doctors and nurses. It did not come down the value chain, and Nirupama will bear me out in this. Today, thanks to everybody's collective efforts, as well as the birth of the various skills council, the gradual penetration into the market, as well into the mind space of people, of other equally valuable areas, have made it aspirational. So that is my short answer. Sorry. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shubnum. If anything from any of the panelists on the same lines before I move into the next theme.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, ASLI, for this opportunity. It's a very important question, and we are all looking at a set of community who are getting older, and they need to be valued. I think that's the crux of the matter. If they don't get valued, nor will they part with the money, I think emotionally also they may die faster, which may not help this industry in a very unique way. I'm saying that. So having said that, all of you know about Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. He said something really meaningful some time ago, where he says he actually, when he went to the US, was washing the toilets. So if that is not aspirational, the level at which he's reached today is one of the top 10 richest persons in the US. I think what we need to really underpin here is that he did not feel it's a menial job. I think that's the first thing that anybody in the health sector needs to understand. He felt that he has to do that job extremely well. And he further went on to say, success depends upon resilience. And resilience depends upon character. And once you have the character, then obviously you will ensure that you take care of somebody well. I think money is definitely one part of it, and it's becoming an industry by itself. We need to value that. But having said that, if people have to have dignity, self-respect, if people need to have a value-based society, then your service orientation needs to be extremely high. And in today's world, I think this industry is seeing B2B, B2C, domestic, international. So there is, I think, varied opportunities and exponential growth with which the industry is growing. And a lot of us will be senior citizens very soon. So the important thing is to how we see our future, and how we want to shape our future will also be important, which means we need to educate the present set of people, which I think you all are doing in a big way. So not only from a skills perspective, but also from a character and value perspective, so that this industry becomes a unique industry which can offer value not necessarily with a profit motive, but also keeping the health of the people in mind. So people can have several job opportunities, be it domestic or international, and they can also scale organizations. So the important thing to keep in mind is that whatever job you do it with care and with passion in this industry specifically. So that to me would be more critical.
Thank you. This is my first ASLI conference, and I should thank Dr. Karthik for inviting me over here and sharing the panel with my mentor, Shubnum ma'am. It's a true privilege. And ma'am has already coined the two important problems in the sense being aspirational and second, the security issue of it. So I'll just give an example. We have, as a state, we have trained almost 20 lakh people last year. But if you ask me how many in this particular segment, it's totally negligible. It was difficult for us to get, first of all, candidates to undertake this particular training program. But what really inspired me that, of course, we can get more candidates to take up this program was when we had an advertisement going out for job roles, care worker job roles in Israel. So we have a target of only 250 people, but we had 1,500 people applying for it. When I thought about it, like there's war going on in this particular country, security is at stake, people are supposed to go to a different nation. They didn't mind any of those things, but they were prepared to take up the program. So I always wondered, what is that one thing, what is lacking? Like ma'am exactly said, maybe the financial component of it, maybe the lacking component, which we can discuss further.
Dr. Sanju, you brought an important point. I want Mansoor Bhai to please go deeper into this. Other sectors have seen it, especially the healthcare, the hospital sector, where jobs have become very aspirational, one, from a dignity respect. Second, also the international opportunities that nurses, doctors, or the general duty assistants that worked in hospitals have. Why not with us? Because they want a career path and they want to grow beyond working for a senior living or a senior care facility. Mansoor Bhai, if you can spend some time on the international opportunities and how do we integrate with our current working environment, please, if you can.
Right. Absolutely, and I've always wondered, that we are talking of capital, funding, so and so forth, and I always wonder that all this perhaps can be achieved, reverse mortgage, get the finance capital in, but what are we going to do with the human capital? That's something which has always struck me, that this is something we need to, whether it's a pipeline or it's a platform, but I don't know how we're going to address that, and the numbers are daunting. If we have to reach what is the, let us say, the projection by all of us here to reach that particular level of penetration of 1.3 to 6 perhaps, we will get the funding to do that, but do we have the human capital? And coincidentally, I just came across an Economic Times article today, 2 days back actually, job opportunities and employability shaping India's workforce. Now this says that a survey was done, and it says here that in the next decade, 24.8% of the workforce will go overseas. And that is what is the question that we need to address. And actually, who are we to come between the aspirations of the youth? We cannot. It's if we can make the sector workable, aspirational, that's only when we'll be able to keep the workforce with us. I'll very quickly tell you, Dr. Karthik, that I have been fortunate as chair of CommonAge to travel across many, many countries across the Commonwealth. And believe you me, friends, in each and every country and each and every community in that country, be it Samoa, be it Auckland, be it Adelaide, Canberra, anywhere, you name it, there are Indians working there in the senior living sector. I only go in senior living and assisted living sector and dementia. I only work pro bono in the senior living space. I don't do anything else. So everywhere I see Indians. And that's when I keep wondering what's going to happen to my country when we need them back here. And how are we going to address that situation? And you know, the conversion rate, as we discussed about remittance overseas, it's too attractive. Imagine, we pay somebody over here a maximum of perhaps 300 pounds per month, while over there it's 100 pounds per day. So how do you match that? So we came across this global. So we are doing something which is something which I would like to share with you, friends. We are part of a global like-minded force which we have come together globally, most of the countries, and we are trying to address this, what is called the ethical migration of workforce. I'm part of that, and I like to coin acronyms like ASLI, Nakli Ka Asli, so Association of Senior Living India. So I have coined this acronym for this group called Elder Care, ELDER Care. It's educate, so you educate the caregiver, learn, he or she interns with a community in India, because then only he or she can demonstrate the D of the elder by internship and the certification course that any training institute can give, a skill development institute can give. E is earn. And then he or she has interned for 2 years in India. He or she goes overseas to earn. And the R is return. So it's elder care. Earn, learn, educate, learn, demonstrate, earn, and return. And this is where we are working, along with the communities, which are the host communities across the seas, and our providing training centers here, and governmental intervention, that it's limited time that they go there and they return, and we send somebody else. So we at least capture the workforce. And when they return with that experience, they have an aspirational line of sight, because they are returning to a country back after some time, after 5 years, by which the country has grown, and there is more managerial positions available for them to be absorbed in. I have my colleague here, Femida Shamam, who's Vice Chair of CommonAge. She started off as a social worker in the organization, and today she's the CEO of that organization, which takes care of 5,500 elders. So this can happen, but we need to create the ecosystem.
Thank you, Mansoor Bhai. While I was thinking, I thought, speaking on behalf of my fellow industry friends, it takes a lot of effort, money, resource, time to hire people, train them, get them on board on the skilling aspect, retain them. It is a cost that not many of us can continue to do that, right? If you just look at the caretaker, the GDA, the general duty assistant, which are the major chunk of our employee workforce, it costs close to 35,000-40,000 for us, just a recruitment cost per employee, because almost 3 months of internship and accommodation, food, welfare, and they would leave in the middle of the year. So if our panelists can spend some time and tell us what are the learnings from other sectors. And second, this is not our job to sit and train. We are not an education institute. We should be putting our money, our expensive private equity money into the business, building the business, while we're struggling to get people, train them, retain them. So if you can break down into two pieces, what are the learnings from other sectors? And the second part, what are the government programs or incentives available to accelerate our efforts? Ultimately, we are going to be creating a lot of jobs, if the panelists can.
So Karthik, it's like saying the elephant in the room for growth. Human capital in this sector is really the elephant in the group, and related to the earlier session where Priya, Prashant all mentioned this piece. It's ripe for disruption. Whenever you want to have change in any piece, if you address it to children, and get a trust factor from senior citizen, you will have change in society. The two ends. And if you look at what Nirupama brought out, why should I touch urine and stool? It's not as if the nurse does not touch the urine and stool. It's not as if the doctor does not touch the urine and stool. But societally, it is acceptable. Rather, they're revered for the fact that they do it, but not other workers. So when you start working with children, telling them about job roles, showing them the importance, you're gradually bringing in a societal change. As far as senior citizens, and I'll stop here and address what you said. As a promoter, you are not in the business of doing education. For you, circular mobility is the answer, right? And in the process of circular mobility, you have to look at what government has, but you all are not making it happen. Sanju can walk you through the apprenticeship programs, right? And from a service provider's perspective, for a time being, it's a transformational point. You will have to learn to live with the fact people will come and go. People will come and go. And in the meantime, the disruption that will be required is, and I foresee this happening sooner than later, and that is robos are going to come into play a huge part in care, because for the same reason, I don't want to touch urine and stool. How it's woven, what kind of disruption, it will come. And then gradually senior citizens will start adopting, and then this ecosystem will change. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, because you can't afford the kind of financial compensations that they are seeking, right? So that evolution has to take place with time only.
Probably I'll add to this. As a state, what we are doing is that we are getting into the schools right from the 6th standard, giving them some aspirations of working as a care worker or the GDA or home health care. The results are to be seen. But there's another thing, as a government, what we do is we train almost 20 lakh people every year. And for this, we need to get from the industry what you need and how many people you need and what is the training you need. And I totally agree with Karthik when he said, no, the industry need not get into the training. We are here for training, but let us know what is the requirement as such, and we'll be happy to do that. So the most pressing point will be, if, as an industry, if you all can come together and let us know this is the number which is required, we'll be more than happy to do that training component for you and give back the trained people. Because this 20 lakh people who may train in other industry, the most important challenge for us is to get them placed. So we have done the training according to the industry requirement. Industry has come to us, asked for the requirement, and we have trained according to their requirement. So very well we can do the same back in this particular industry also. But sharing one of the best practices what we have, just adding to your elder thing, we do everything except the R component of it. The reason being, so we are doing a program for nurses where we do a finishing school in that final year internship for 3 months, and we have our partnering hospitals who absorb these particular nurses for 2 years. In this 2 years, we give additional 2 hours per day, apart from the normal hospital duty, where we do country-specific training for them. And at the end of 2 years, they go abroad, but they never return back. So for which I'll give another example. I spoke to one of the people who is placed again in Israel. So how the rule works there is you go in a 3-year contract, and which can extend to another 2 more years. After that, it can extend only if that particular person whom he is giving care doesn't pass away. So that person was saying to me, like, my only prayer is that, no, like, this person should live long enough so that I can stay back in this particular country. So coming back is a big challenge, especially the financial component of it. But if we can think of a career growth from, like Shubnum ma'am said, this will definitely work. So the career pathway is so important. They don't find this aspirational. I think you as an industry should make it aspirational. If we can do anything in that, if we have to conduct more of the workshops or whatever is required, please do let us know. And as a state, we do have a good number of A&M candidates. And for us, we do get almost 500 to 600 people who are unemployed every year. So I think these are one of the best people whom you can employ, plus GDA candidates through short-term skilling. So a couple of programs we can definitely do.
Thank you.
Just to add to what you said, you don't want to throw P and VC money into the water, right? And it's not an easy thing to retain people. First, let's understand that and acknowledge so we know then what needs to be done. I'll just kind of step back a little bit to talk about evolution of jobs in India specifically. So initially, I'm sure all of you know, most people who are not entrepreneurs wanted government jobs. Not having a government job was seen as a stigma. Then later we had private sector, largely the railways, public sector rather, the railways, then the banks, and then the private sector. And it came to a stage when people said if you're in a government job, they look down upon you rather than a private sector job. And private sector jobs become high paying. From private sector jobs, temp jobs was looked upon very differently. People thought that, you know, getting a temp job is, there's a huge stigma attached to it. That is changing in a big way. The industry is really growing big. And to add to all this, I think the background verifications of people is extremely important because you select them, then you find that there's something has gone wrong in terms of their character or criminal record. That also adds to it. So when we are really looking at human capital, and to add to what he said, if government is also supporting in a lot many ways to train the people, I think attracting people will become easier. And you quoted the Israel example, and I was on my flight to Israel about a few years back, and I saw half the flight was with caregivers. First time I heard the word caregivers. I used to think it's caretakers, and they called it caregivers. And most of them came from Northeast, you know, and the kind of salaries they were talking to me, it was a B2C model, and I was just thinking, why, you know, why would they stay in the country? Because they looked after well. So when I came back from Israel, I still saw a huge set of people on the flight. And I was pretty surprised, you know, for Indians to kind of move abroad for jobs like this. And since we do a lot of work on the health sector, be it pharma, be it hospitals and otherwise, we also do a lot of nursing. So one particular hospital in US is looking at 50,000 nurses. So there is a huge demand. And the same applicable to India, right? People are looking at this industry where they can really kind of grow. And I think it's onus on government and private sector and the companies together to kind of educate and bring out that. I think the industry, the very fact that there's an association like that, it's getting into industry status, thanks to you all. ASLI, one of the founders, so I think slowly it's getting an industry status, and then people then feel proud to belong to that industry. So I think it's a question of evolution. You may not have stigma attached to it anymore. It's just the way we position it. That would be my view.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, what's really happening is that we will need to triangulate in the sense that the workforce demand is acute across the world. It's not only here. And because it is acute across the world, and unless we can quickly make it aspirational here in India, we will lose the narrative completely, believe me. And with the rupee and the conversion that we have of many currencies, it's going to be an uphill task. So unless we make it aspirational in a manner that you're going to do the same job overseas, right? So the only differential is the money, correct? So if we can make it in the sense that we allow you to go and earn there, but you need to return. The R is extremely important. And we need to create that ecosystem of R, and that's why there has to be that ethical migration where the providing country is not shortchanged. You'll be surprised, ma'am, is that let's say in a country like Philippines, which is a big provider of caregivers across the world, there is the government of Germany has opened an institute in Philippines, teaching them German, training them there, and taking them over to Germany. This is happening as we speak. So it's a matter of time. And unless we gear ourselves up and work out an our situation where we allow them to go, but we come them with a hook that they have to return, like how you said, if a person dies, then he has to return. So there are systems that we are working on where you go for a specific work permit. It's not PR, like permanent residence. You can't do that. It's a specific work permit, you need to return. And that can only happen if the corresponding community is in partnership correctly.
I just want to share 2-3 things over the years that we have done, right? Number one, to your point, sir, in the GATS service contracts, the recipient country is supposed to give back money to the provider country. That has not happened. It has not been reinvested into healthcare. So we are fighting for years of backlog that the revenue has come into the books of Government of India, but it has not come into the health sector per se. I'm sure there'll be a mechanism for that. Secondly, to your point of return, and I think I'd like to leave it with your permission, Karthik, with the audience. Given the kind of population that we have, even if a certain percentile of them stay back, and this is exactly what happened with doctors and nurses, it's not a bad thing. Why? Because it's aspirational for the people who have been left behind to come into the sector, right? So somebody went. How proud was India when Kamala Harris stood for becoming president, right? And so on and so forth. You will find plenty of examples. Issue here is, how do you make it aspirational, and how do you compensate them and give them that feeling of security they're in the right place? From the sector skill councils, we work with each and every embassy overseas to ensure that they are given the appropriate visas and the choice. And this has happened with Japan 2 years ago. Currently, it has happened with Australia. We are negotiating with OECD countries on this, that they are given visas to stay on for the next 4 to 5 years, to the point very rightly pointed out by Nirupama, that in case the person passes away, this person went in an aspiration, I'm going to get so much of money back, and the person passes away and they're left high and dry, that covers it. So here, we are hugely dependent on all of you to give us inputs of how to push this and move the needle. But we must not be fearful that they will leave. Also, last thing, kindly make sure that whatever, it's always been my appeal, whatever training you give, make sure there is enough space for lateral movement. If the person is not happy in healthcare, they can move into hospitality, they can move into other places. In the initial days of the hospital sector, we took people from hospitality. So bear that in mind. Where else can they move? Don't lose them.
Dr. Shubnum, such an important point. I am a beneficiary and with the guidance of the Skill Development Council at a center and state level, guys. So I highly encourage operators, service provider, product developers from the respective state to reach out to the respective skill development centers in their states and tell them how many jobs we can observe and create, right? That's the way the industry size will be represented in their eyes. Otherwise, it's going to be here and we will move on. So I am a beneficiary, thanks to the state and the central government for subsidizing to some level of our recruitment and training costs. So I hope you guys will do the same. Moving on to the last question, and we will wrap up after that with some questions. What is the role of technology in training in making the whole skilling part efficient? Of course, there is some of the things that I've come across is they use virtual reality, simulation training. That's one aspect I've seen. From your experience, Dr. Sanju and Nirupama and the rest, Dr. Shubnum and Dr. Mansur, quickly, if you can spend some time on what's the role of technology in skilling, how can it drive efficiency for all of us?
Quickly, I think all of us know technology is playing a very huge role. HR tech companies are preparing themselves where you can do all kinds of recruitment, from pin code recruitment to age-related recruitment, whatever you want to do. And most importantly, I think tech can help from a robo to anything possible. The good news for India is that you all might know that only 8% of the population is in the employment, the organized employment sector. Out of the 8%, less than 3% is in the private sector. So we have, less than 3% in the private sector, out of the 8%, not out of the 1.44 billion population. So you can imagine the number of people who are available, who can be trained remotely using tech, and everybody can benefit from that. So we really don't need to worry, like she rightly pointed out, if few of them stay back also, that few is running in crores for us, right? And public sector is about 5.77 and private sector is about 2.5 or something. So we are very, very minuscule organized sector. So there's a huge scope for technology to come in and for people to get trained. Even remote training is possible. So I feel that will have a huge impact on the human capital.
So as a state, there's a couple of investments which we have done as far as technology is concerned, the most important being our partnership with IIT Madras into simulated-based training. So what we are telling our training partners is that don't invest on any of the technology-related training requirement, even simulators. Now, we as a state can do that, or we can bring that to your place and we can do the training. So, and we grow on it as per the requirement. So again, we rely much on the industry to tell your requirement so that we can custom make the present training program what we have, and we can put more of the technology into it. But we have few very successful models using VR and AR, and I'll be happy to share with anyone who's interested and share the good practices what we have in technology-based training.
Thank you. We are running to the closure. I would open to any one question. Do we have time for a? Okay, great. So time for questions. Ready and shoot. If someone can please pass on the mic. We'll go from left to right, or okay, right to left.
Hi. First of all, this is a very sensitive subject that you people are discussing. Being into home healthcare segment and working since last 6-7 years, I don't have a particular question, but I have few suggestions or few things which I have learned after meeting 4,000 plus people who are normally caregivers. So first of all, I can say that, I can clearly say that, and very few people can object into it, that we are sitting on a time bomb of manpower, whether it is nurses or it is caregivers, because the population which is rising, and against the population, the people who are working are relatively less, and they are reducing day by day because of other opportunities in various segments like Amazon or Swiggy or any kind of other things. Because these people are not educated people or not skilled people who can be taken care. Plus 95% or more business is with unorganized players in home healthcare. So these people are working as gig workers. So the major problem here, and the government or other people should do something about it, is skilled people. And I'm coming to skill set. See, we have seen that the Skill India has 3 months GDA program or 4 months GDA program. These people are daily wage people. We are not able to find people, thousands of people. We are only able to find hundreds of people to work as a caregivers. So whether it is my suggestion or a question that should government work on a smaller time frame? Because to change a diaper or giving some kind of support as a caregiver, you don't need 3 months. You should just working for 5 days or 10 days kind of things.
Sorry, we're just running short.
Yeah.
One last question. Sri, if you want to... no? Sorry. Okay. Guys, I'm so sorry. We are running short of time and we have to close. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, dear panelists. Thank you, audience, for being patient.
Well,
This
I
can go
request
for-
you to kindly hand over the token of appreciation as a gesture of gratitude to all our panelists, please. I request all of you guys to kindly step forward. We'll have a group photograph. Let's capture this lovely moment. Let's have the biggest round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.